Welcome back to Strip to the Soul, the podcast where we talk about all things inner work, self love, and everything it means to be a woman and a human in today's world. I hope your month has started off strong. If not, it's okay. Here we are. And in today's episode, I'm going to talk about falling out of love with yourself and coming back stronger. I want to explore the seasons of self doubt that we go through because, at the start of the year, we can have all the intentions to, start the year strong, whatever, be this new version of ourselves. And sometimes that happens, sometimes it doesn't, it's just the journey of life. But, sometimes you might need to break up with yourself, and this breakup can lead to radical growth. It's a little bit uncomfortable, but I do find it's necessary to actually think about and talk about, and that is just falling out of love with that version of you. And it's not just about having a bad day, but it's this deeper disconnection that we can start to feel within ourselves. This inner voice that's almost telling us that we're not enough, or you're in this season that feels out of alignment, or you feel disconnected from your body or your desires or your truth deep down. And I feel even if we know it or don't or recognized it at the time, maybe you only recognize it upon reflection. We've all been there, okay? And some of us longer than we care to admit. I know when I was in a really rough season, when I was dating someone I shouldn't have been, although it did lead to a lot of growth and self-discovery, I stayed in something. I was loyal to a version of myself that I really shouldn't have been. And I should have broken up with that version of myself at the time. And here's the thing, when you fall out of love with yourself, it isn't the end. I wasn't loving that version of myself. I had fallen out of love with myself, whether I recognized it or not. And it's actually a powerful sign and a wake up call for a season of growth to begin. And these seasons of growth can show up in the rawest, most uncomfortable form. And when I say this, I mean it like I wasn't happy with how I was eating. I wasn't eating well. I was barely eating, to be honest. I wasn't taking care of myself. My hair was falling out. Like I was ready to break up with that version of myself who was saying yes to something I should have been saying no to. I was saying yes to someone that was draining my energy rather than taking control of my life and breaking up with that version of myself. And in this episode, I want to really dive into that, like what it feels like to really break up with yourself. And like I said, it can show up in the most uncomfortable ways. But I want to talk about why it happens and then how you can come back to radical self love and also your authentic self stronger than ever. And the first thing you have to do is recognizing this season of disconnection, because when you fall out of love with yourself, it doesn't happen overnight. It can happen slowly, especially if it's like in a relationship or in a job that's draining you. And you can actually be really in love with your life and you're blaming your life. I don't love my job. I don't love, the person in the relationship or the person I am in the relationship. And what you have to actually do is accept responsibility for that. Like you need to break up with that version of you, the version of you that's going to the job every day that you hate, that's energy is drained, that's being, mistreated or kind of disrespected. And it might not be this dramatic toxic relationship. It's not always that, but it can show up in this dissatisfaction in life as such, where you're restless or you're unmotivated or you start comparing yourself to everyone around you. And then this energy or this feeling starts to grow and it manifests into an inner dialogue where we start to, criticize ourselves or we have harsh judgment or we ignore our needs. So that's what I was doing. I was ignoring my needs to eat well and take care of myself and put myself first and say no to something. And, we settle as well. We settle in relationships and jobs that don't fit us anymore. And they almost numb how we feel. I know this. It wasn't just in a relationship, but I was in a job that drained the life out of me. But it's not the job's fault. It was who I was, who was showing up in that. I comfort ate on my lunch breaks just to make myself feel something, right? I was so disconnected from myself just because I was trying to gain the approval of others to make myself feel worthy of that job role. And you have to look at the season, if you've been in it, right, if you're in it right now, or you were in it, not as a failure. It's truly a message in your life, or a piece or a chapter of your life. And when you reflect on it, or if you're in it, you can see that your inner self is trying to tell you something, or was trying to tell you something important. And that something in your life, the habits or the mindset, is no longer aligned. And the first thing you need to do in this, like the first step, isn't to fix yourself immediately. I always say you never want to rush anything, especially when it comes to big life decisions, but it's noticing it, it's naming it. I was so numb to my emotions that I wasn't recognizing that I was depleting myself and depriving myself of happiness, joy, food, because I was just like so disconnected from my body. And acknowledging that you're in this period of self disconnection is awareness. And this awareness is actually the beginning of the rebound. Because had I pulled myself out of it in the moment and recognized it, maybe if I listened to my own podcast, took my own advice, I would have been able to see that I was being destructive. And I feel like I've gone through this in many different seasons and phases of my life, but these are the most recent that I can pull on. And there is reasons why we fall out of love with ourselves. There's actually quite a few reasons. Like, one is this like external pressure. I felt like I had to prove myself that I was actually doing something in my life, that I was worthy of this job. And society can teach us to perform and achieve and be likable. And when this is the case, we start to overinvest validation from others instead of listening to our own needs. I was so burnt out from work that I just completely ignored my own needs. I wasn't working out. I wasn't eating well. Even when I was eating, I wasn't really taking time for myself to sit and be present. It was like rush, rush, on to the next thing, do the next thing. The next thing is like, if we have unresolved past wounds like old heartbreaks or childhood conditioning or betrayal, like this can unconsciously drive us to this self-criticism or this like version of us that really isn't true. And you have to break up with that version of you that's still heartbroken, that still has this conditioning, whatever it is, this self-criticism. Another thing is like comparison culture is so present, especially with social media. Like, it just keeps on growing and growing, and it gives us more and more of a reason to compare yourself to other people, and it makes you feel like you're behind, even if you're further ahead than where you once started. And also, this is, like I said, neglecting your needs. When you say yes too often, or you shrink yourself in a relationship and actually don't ask for what you want, and it accumulates and disconnects you from your inner joy and also your inner truth, because you are saying yes to someone else to keep them there or to keep the job, whilst neglecting your own needs of what you actually need and want in a relationship or a job situation. And remember, what you need is never going to be the same as someone else, and that's okay. And understanding why it happens is never about the blame. It's about context. And when you have more context, it's more understanding. Once you see the patterns in your life, you can start to repair the relationship with yourself. This sounds so funny, but I was in a hole. Like, I was at my rock bottom. I was in like dark night of the soul, whatever you want to call it. I just completely like lost my appetite and love for life. I feel like the relationship with food is like can really manifest in like what else is going on in your life. I was just in this like kind of survival state, and I was so disconnected from myself. I barely wanted to eat. I'm not even joking. For a whole month straight, I ate one Thai green chicken curry every single day. I would order it like on a food app, and that was all I'd eat for the whole day. And if you think about it, that's so unhealthy on so many levels. But it wasn't like disordered eating, because it wasn't about the food. It was about the disconnection from myself, that I just had no desire to nourish myself, because I felt just so depleted in other areas of my life that it was like I wasn't pouring into myself. I wasn't taking care of myself, and I was letting everything else take priority in my life. And this is the kind of patterns that you can have in life. When you're skipping your workouts, you're not taking time for yourself in the morning, you're neglecting your self-care, you're neglecting your needs, when you need to look at your life and be like, I need to break up with this version of myself. Or if you're like acting in a way that isn't true to you, maybe you're being really reactive or erratic in relationships, and you're like, gosh, this isn't me. Only you can make the change, and only you can do the inner breakup, right? And you have to take that inner breakup and its lessons. Think of it as an actual breakup, right? But instead with someone, with yourself. If you go through a breakup in life, you feel hurt, you feel frustrated, you can feel ashamed, you might even, want to reject certain parts of who you are, as if the versions of yourself you see in the mirror, like, isn't lovable because they've made mistakes. And here's the truth on that. Like, every breakup in your life holds lessons, and your breakup with yourself is no different. How often do you come out of a breakup with a relationship and you're like, okay, well, this is what I've learned, this is what I don't want to do differently? Well, hopefully you're doing these things, right? Because it makes us better humans. But you can reflect like, oh, I didn't like the way I acted in that situation, I didn't like how I said that, I wish I was more compassionate. You can take all of those things and then apply it to yourself as well, on your own inner breakup. And, it's hard, but it teaches you. It teaches you what you've been ignoring. It teaches you the boundaries that you needed. If you break up with a person, you realize that there was things you didn't ask for, things you didn't say. Also, it teaches you about the desires. I spoke about desires in one of my other episodes this month, but the desires that are authentic to you. So if certain desires in your romantic relationship weren't being met, such as like, someone, reaching out, like communicating with you well, like maybe thinking of you and buying you a sweet gift, like, picking you up, whatever your desires are, they're rightfully yours. You can bring awareness to them and see how they're authentic to you, and then hold them close to you moving forward, and bring a voice to them so that they're important. And also, like, it teaches you the habits and beliefs and patterns that are no longer serving you. Like, say if it comes to attachment styles, or if you thought you wanted something you didn't, like, all of these things are uncomfortable, yes, painful, yes, but it's also sacred if you think about it. It's your soul saying, I need to be recognized, and I need to be honored, and I also need to be in alignment. And when you can lean into this alignment instead of running from it, this season of breakup can be the most transformative time in your life. And I think, being the new year and being the start of the year, it is good to break up with old versions of yourself and old patterns, and say what isn't working for you anymore. And it's not going to happen by magic. It's not going to happen unless you bring awareness to it and actually make the effort to do it yourself. And once you've actually recognized it and acknowledged the disconnect, the next step is actually showing yourself intentionally and gently that you're there for you. That, yeah, you can break up with that version of yourself, but you're partnering with the new version of you. And it's not to just heal, but it's really to tune into yourself, connect with yourself, and ask yourself, like, what do you really want, and what parts of myself have I been neglecting? If you're deciding to make that change, like, what can you be doing differently? Like, these could be like small rituals of care, really just romanticizing your life. I say it a lot, but it's not just romanticizing by doing, it's also saying no to something that drained you so you can restore this connection with self. And it's reclaiming your voice so that you can speak your truth of what it is you actually want in this new relationship with yourself, in this new version of yourself. And celebrating that, right? You see those funny reels and whatever where people celebrate a breakup. Like, celebrate a breakup with a toxic version that you had with yourself. It's not just about toxic relationships with others. You can also have a toxic relationship to self. And no matter how small, recognize what you're doing right? Even if it's like, okay, now I'm going to have 2 meals a day. Now I'm going to take 10 minutes to do my hair in the morning and put some, skincare on. Whatever it is, I'm going to go to the gym today. It's not about putting pressure on yourself to do it all perfectly and do it every day. It's just a bridge back to love and a bridge to this newer version of yourself, because there's never a quick fix. It's like anything, it's a journey in life. You have to take step after step, and it's a deliberate practice of showing up for yourself every day. But those days accumulate, and I believe this is the power of like radical self-love, when you come back home to yourself. And it feels different because this new relationship you're having with self is created intentionally. These rituals, these practices, you're taking note, you're really seeing what it is that makes you feel good. And when you start to focus on you and you start to focus on these things that feel good, you're not going to be chasing the validation because you know your worth. You're not going to be shrinking yourself because you understand that your energy is precious. And you're not going to be returning to those toxic relationships with yourself just as you wouldn't return to a toxic relationship with an ex, hopefully, because you remember how it feels to be treated well. If you start to be treated well, you would never go back to something that isn't treating you well. And you have to have that same mindset with yourself. Someone asked me like how I got over someone. A girlfriend asked me like 2 days ago how I got over that guy. And the truth was, I met someone better. And when I met someone better, I was like, why would I ever go back to someone who was treating me worse? And you have to have that same mindset with yourself. Like if you're treating yourself better now, you're not going to go back to those toxic habits that you created. And it's not toxic in a place of like in a bad way. It's just like you weren't doing the best for yourself. And it's up to you to do the best for yourself. And it's not about perfection. It is about consistency. It's about choosing yourself again and again and again, even on the messy and unmotivated days. And it's about being your own, safe and loving and really honest companion where you can notice when you're not doing okay, when you notice when you're in a bad season in life and ask yourself, hey, what can I do for you? Like when you're going through a hard time and that friend's like, how can I help you? It's like the most nourishing thing in the world where they're not trying to fix you as such. They're not trying to like give you all this advice and like gaslight you into feeling better. It's like, what do you need right now? And when you can start to ask yourself that question, you can start to break up with the bad parts of yourself that aren't serving you, that aren't helping you, that are actually stopping you from feeling good in life. And I think we all deserve to feel really good in life. So yeah, it's about embracing those cycles. I look back and I'm like, I should have broke up with old versions of me, but I stayed loyal for a little longer than I should. And that's the reality of life. Self-love is not linear. You will have seasons where it feels easy and seasons where you feel really far away from yourself and a bit disconnected. And I feel like there's so much pressure at the start of the year if things haven't gone off the way you wanted. And that's okay. Falling out of love with versions of yourself is a natural part of growth, whether you recognize it or not. But the key is to try and start noticing early and breathing into it and bringing yourself back intentionally when you find yourself slipping, when you find yourself losing yourself in your work, when you lose motivation to your routine, or you start losing yourself in a relationship, because cycles of disconnection and reconnection are just a part of life and evolution. And each cycle is constantly going to teach us more about our limits and our desires and also our capacity, like our capacity for what we can handle, but also our capacity for joy. And so if you're in this season, like this low season, or you're just kind of coming out of it, you're like coming out of the trenches, remember it's temporary and it's a fertile ground for what's next. It's like you plant the seed in the fertile ground for what is going to grow. And this level of self-awareness and self-compassion is personal power. So I just wanted to share that with you today, especially with it being the new year. Like you can have a lot of pressure for everything to be going well, and it's not always the reality. Sometimes we just need to like have a little bit of a reality check and check in with ourselves. And so I just want to say I'm with you, and I hope this message just helped in one way or another, just like sharing a bit of raw, honest conversation. I feel like we need a little bit of raw honesty sometimes. But if this episode resonated with you, please do share it with someone who might also be struggling or needs that little reminder to reconnect with themselves. And if you haven't connected with me and subscribed to the podcast, I would love if you followed the show, gave it a 5-star rating, or also pre-order my book. It's actually now available. It's all about stripping down to your soul. But yeah, it's available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble if you are in the US of A. So remember, falling out of love and breaking up with yourself does not mean you're failed. It's just a part of life, and it's a signal. And with intention and compassion, you can always, 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 always come back stronger than ever. So I will see you in next week's episode. Mwah!